It's almost like as if you're trying to slowly move them from one form of security, which is their job, into another type of a form of security, which is real estate investing. But you've also got to do that slowly and easily, correct?
Yeah, it's not, you don't, few people will come up to you and go, here's a $100,000 check, here you go. It doesn't happen that way. It's a buildup.
Welcome to Real Talk with Gary. If you are listening to this show, that means you are either searching or ready to make a financial change in your life. This show is not only about real estate investing, but also the importance of mindset and the roadmap to a better, healthier life. Learn the daily routines of successful entrepreneurs and the latest market strategies and trends to stay ahead of the curve. Ready for some down-to-earth, north-of-the-border Canadian talk? Here's your host, Gary Hibbert.
All right, welcome back. And today I've got Rene Masse. This is an archive podcast. I actually did this one back in 2018, and we talk about how to walk away from your 9-to-5 using real estate. Now, Rene, he's got over 20 years of being a successful entrepreneur. He's also a real estate investor. He's a real estate agent out in the Kingston area, and he has an extensive network of experts in the real estate industry. And so what do we dive into? We touch on the mindset required to leave your 9-to-5, some of the best selling techniques to master in the beginning, and one of his favorite places to invest in and why he enjoys investing there, how to have a conversation with a potential joint venture partner. That's always tricky in the beginning. Should you take your inexperienced joint venture partner out to see the property? I get that question asked all the time. And should you invest with family or should you stay far away from them, right? So really great podcast. We obviously dive into a lot more on this particular topic, but I think you guys enjoy it. And especially, we also touch on the mindset. We spent a bit of time on that, and especially in today's market, very, very important. Now, what is happening in the market today? Well, if you've been paying attention, last week on Tuesday, it was announced that Canada's annual inflation rate rose to 3.3%, up from 2.8% the previous month. So what does this mean? What does this mean for the interest rate announcement for September 6th that's coming up? Here's what I know. Who knows, right? People may say that it's going to go up. Maybe people say it might just stay where it is. There's a CIBC senior economist that I was reading her article from Catherine Judge, and she indicates that the Bank of Canada will raise its key lending rate by 25 basis points in September. So look, we'll see. Who knows? And if they do, that's going to be the 11th increase in a row, which would be 5% in total in 18 months. So huge. So what are your options, right? This is what I think a lot of people want to know. Well, look, I think there's about 5 options, and there may be more, but here I'm going to share 5 with you. So number one, look, what you can do, and I've done this, I did this last year actually, is lock in. Just lock everything in. Number 2, if you don't want to lock it all in, right, then you can continue to ride the wave if you're in a variable. That's the second option. Number 3, here's what I would recommend. Reach out to your bank and see if you can renegotiate, right? Let's say if you're in let's say you got 15 years left to pay off your mortgage. Well, you can maybe bump it up to 25 or 30. Yeah, I get it's going to take you a little bit longer, but at least your mortgage payments are going to be cheaper and you can hang on, right? So that's another option. Number 4, you can maybe shop around. Maybe you might be able to get a better deal at another bank. If you're looking for that type of an option, reach out to us. I've got the mortgage agents that we use, Better Mortgages, and they've been helping a lot of our clients with different ideas and solutions. So reach out if you need help with that. Or number 5, and I've talked about this before and I've done it myself, if your property is in a negative cash flow and it's too much for you, sell, okay? There's nothing wrong with that, right? Selling is not failing. So there's a couple different options. There's obviously more, but those are the 5 that I want to talk about today. And I'll finish it off with this. Your economy, right, doesn't have to reflect the economy. Yes, I get it. It's winter right now in the economy, but you can still have the best time of your life, but you have to manage, number 1, your thoughts. You also have to manage who and what you're listening to, and you should turn your shoulds into must. All right. So with that, I want you guys to sit back, relax, enjoy today's show. This is an archive podcast with Rene Masse, and I will talk to you guys next week. Take care. Today's show is brought to you by BM Select. Are you looking to become a millionaire through real estate investing? If the answer is yes, and it should be, then BM Select is for you. BM Select has created more real estate millionaires in the past 15 years than any other mortgage brokerage in Canada. They create strategies that allow investors to grow their portfolio and have a unique way of helping clients navigate through the different banks and lending options available. Contact them today for a free consultation and get started on what could be a life-changing journey.
All right. So on the call today, I've got Rene Masse. Rene, are you there?
Yes, I am. How are you, Gary?
Beautiful. I am great. You know what? I'm actually excited to do this podcast with you. I've heard some great stuff about you. And I think we had a chat about a month ago or so. So I've gotten to know you a little bit better, but why don't you let the audience know a little bit more about who Rene is, where you came from, what you're doing before, and then kind of where things are right now.
Sure. Thanks, Gary. Thanks for having me on the show. It's quite a pleasure. And I've heard a lot about you as well. I think what you're doing is quite wonderful. So that's great.
Well, thank you.
Where I come from, I'm born and raised in Toronto, but I live in Kingston. I live in Kingston because of the student rentals. That's what I do well, are student rentals. And I got into it. I was a teacher. I went to Queen's, became a teacher, a French teacher, if you could imagine me as a French teacher. It was horrible. I really did not like it at all. So I quit. I really quit early on and ended up being a contractor, oddly enough. This spirit of being an entrepreneur was early in my career. I never really wanted to have to be tied down, or always wanted to have a bit of freedom and control over what I wanted to do. And then became a contractor, and then noticed that I was actually helping others build their portfolio. And then bit by bit, I started acquiring properties as well as a contractor. I still own the business, but it's more of a painting business, a flooring and painting business, which I subcontract out a bit more. But once again, most of my time is spent on real estate, raising capital, mentoring people, and finding deals.
Okay, so what was it you didn't like about the teaching thing? Was it just the 9 to 5?
It was what I didn't like about the teaching was the subject. I speak French. I'm from Toronto. It's an odd saying. I speak French. I'm from Toronto. My parents were from Quebec, so
okay.
So I spoke French in the household, and I wasn't very fond of teaching students how to speak French, especially if they really didn't care for the subject. There was that aspect, but also I wasn't necessarily the type of person who was drawn to the security of becoming a teacher. I mean, there was a lot of people who were like, oh, great, I'm a teacher. It's as if they won the lottery. You had the summers off, you had the benefits, and the nice pension. I really didn't care for that. So when I quit, people really, especially family and friends, were like, what's up? It doesn't make any sense. Like, this isn't the way to go. Like, we're like, what's wrong? I mean, you had it all. And obviously, quitting, it wasn't the easiest thing. I mean, quitting was easy, I think. Afterwards, what came afterwards really wasn't the easiest thing. It was rough. You know, you make that leap, and then most people think when you make that leap, you're going to go up. I mean, you go down. And then you kind of reassess it, and then you work your way up. But I've always had that belief that I can make this. This could work. It wasn't. There was doubts along the way, but there was still that belief. It was very strong belief of abundance, and that yes, I can buy real estate, fix them up, rent them out. It wasn't. I can see it with other people. My own father did a bit of it in the 80s in Toronto, so I always had. The belief was there. That's important.
Okay. So you go from teacher, then you go to contractor, correct? And then you get to the real estate investing piece. Okay. So
that's right.
Help me understand, and I guess also the listeners as well, to that mindset, because that's the hardest thing, I think, for a lot of people that they listen to these podcasts and they hear these stories of, oh, well, I was able to quit and then I got into this. But what is that mindset? Like, were you listening to podcasts or, what were you doing?
There were no podcasts back then.
Okay. Fair enough.
I don't feel that old. Overall, podcasts are fairly recent.
True enough.
The mindset. I would say I've tried to path people become like people. I've tried to help people become entrepreneurs, and some I think you're born an entrepreneur. You got to have it deeply rooted somewhere. And most entrepreneurs start usually in their teens. They start, the lemonade stand, or I was trying to resell tickets in Toronto. That was my start of it. I did rickshawing as well. But I think an entrepreneur either starts when you're either in your early 20s, or you become an entrepreneur when you're 40. You got the midlife crisis. Those are the difficult parts. Majority of people start those times. So you've got to start it when you're young. And I started when I was young. I didn't have any dependencies. I didn't have a mortgage. I can move at a drop of a hat. I could just throw everything in my car and just move on. So you've got that flexibility, and my standard of living was fairly low. I didn't need to live in a chateau or anything. I just needed a bed. It wasn't much. So that enables you to start. What helped me as well was that I went to university for quite some time. So during the summer months, I could dabble with the entrepreneurial stuff and then go back to university and then learn some more what I wanted to learn. And then so there was a cushion of, I wasn't just thrown into it. There was still a cushion where I had, government loans, I guess, if you want to call it, to survive. But but then again, I did have, in the summer months, I was able to pay for my whole accommodations for the whole 8 months. So I worked a lot. Like, I did not stop working in the summer months.
Right. Okay. So you think that you're born with it, and maybe I agree with it a bit, because I know when I was in my teenage years, I was always thinking about, I want to work for myself. I don't want to go and work for somebody else. And then somewhere along the way, I had kids, and then I got into this 9-to-5 job, and I got stuck there. So, and then I had to revisit those dreams again, right? So, so I understand exactly where you're coming from when you talk about that. Cause I do believe that I've always had it in me, but I lost it. And I think that happens for a lot of people as well too, right?
Mm-hmm. There are the exceptions, and there's a way of just, kind of having both sides of it. But I think what it comes down to is that I meet a lot of people who want that independence of being an entrepreneur. It's just, you can't have it all. You can't have security and the independence. You've got to lose that security in order to gain that independence. And then once you move forward, which I've come to realize is the security is just kind of an illusion. Yeah. It's really not quite real. I mean, in a way, is having a paycheck on a monthly basis secure? There's so many things that can happen. Security is an illusion that you create in your head.
Yeah, no, I believe that. I remember when I had that 9-to-5 job, I thought that was secure. And then one day I walked into work and I just saw people getting fired left, right, and center. And that was the awakening for me. It's like, wow, this is not that secure.
Yeah.
So, and when yeah, go ahead.
You can't have both. You can't have both. People want both, and that's where it becomes too much.
Right. Okay. So
you got to lose it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. 100%. Okay. So you get into real estate investing. Why? Why real estate investing? Why not the stock market? So why not GICs or RSPs and all the other stuff that
I dabbled a bit in stocks for a while in the early 2000s, after the crash, or in 2001 or so. But it's the leverage. The leverage is unbelievable. I mean, I was dabbling with my own money in stocks, but I couldn't necessarily. You're working with very little. You can only make so little, and so it was the leverage. I saw the capabilities of leverage with real estate, and then again, I was also a type of person that I was like, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. I mean, not that I could actually do it properly. There was better people. Either way, I felt comfortable painting or doing flooring or fixing something up. It wasn't an arduous task. It's something I could feel I can do. But then again, the one thing that really helped me immensely was I never worked alone. So even though I didn't know how to do the task, and I was telling everybody, all these clients, yeah, I can do that, I can do that, I can fix that, I would hire people who can actually do the work.
Right.
So what helped immensely was the ability to talk to people. That helped a lot in my career. So
building a team of whoever, real estate agent, mortgage agent, contractors, is that what you're talking about? Yes, that as well. And just meeting clientele that they needed stuff done. I could just say, yes, I can do it. And then building a team to get it done. Right. Okay. From the contractor's perspective, that extends to the real estate side as well. Building a team, getting to know people. But it's really, when people think, real estate, they think of buildings, but I'm sure you would find that as well, Gary, that it's more of a people business where the more connections you have, the more people you know, the different types of people you know helps you grow. I believe in that 100%, because I know I'm not sure if you know my background, but I used to work at TD Bank as an IT manager there. And then I got my real estate license. And so now I'm in sales. Yeah. I know nothing about sales. I've never taken a sales course in my whole entire life. And probably the best thing that somebody sat down and taught me in the beginning is that you don't have to sell anything except yourself. And then once I understood that, I was like, okay, I get it. And I'm sure that's where you're going with that as well, too, is that, it's that people business and selling yourself. Right? Yes. Yeah. That's so early on. I was shown, it was maybe a 5-minute course. I was shown how to knock on a door, how to canvas, and I was terrified. Yeah. But every year, it was in university, so I didn't have anything else. I didn't have another job. I didn't want to go back home and live with my parents, so I stayed in Kingston, and I was shown how to knock doors. But every year, I got better and better, and then obviously I would hire others to help me knock on doors and do marketing and canvassing. And that's where it started. I did 10 years of it, and it helps with the sales. Someone mentioned to me once, if you want an education as a salesperson, go knock on a door for a year. It's like 2 years of an MBA. This is what I was told. I've never really root that route. However, doing 10 years of canvassing and teaching others how to canvas and the script and selling to people and actually living off those sales. I didn't have any other income. Definitely, you learn how to sell. Yeah. And that's going to be a scary place to be. It was like, and that just hit home for me is when you don't have another income. That's it. So your income is based on knocking on these doors. Well, early on, yeah. I mean, that's how I made my way through university. And then once I left quitting my teaching job, that was the cheapest, most effective way that I knew at the time how to market myself and grow the business. Right. And it's time consuming, but it's a learning experience as well. For sure. Okay, so now you're getting into the real estate investing. Walk us through that now. Are you buying these homes on your own? Are you doing joint ventures with other people? Like how do you grow your real estate portfolio? So when I first started, like most people, I bought my own home, and I bought my own home. I need to live in it, and it was basically 100% financing. And this is back when? Back in 2005. Okay. I mean, it's 100% financing. I got a business loan, and then then business loan was part of the down payment, and then I got the rest of the loan. But I lived with students at the time. So, I didn't mind, and I grabbed students that were never there. That really helped immensely. Okay. So I just said, listen, I'm choosing you as a housemate because I know you're only here from Monday to Thursday. You're gone weekends or so. So it was, we were 4 in the house, and
It was really just two of us. There's just one guy who was a really nice guy who did all the cooking. I'd buy the food. It was a good arrangement. It was a really good arrangement. But it was also because at the time I was young and I didn't have any responsibilities and dependencies as well. I didn't have kids at the time.
So your first property, your first one is a student rental. That's where you live, essentially.
Well, it was. I can see, being in Kingston for quite some time, I can see how it was the downtown core was growing. And so I bought just within not city limits, but within the student rental limit. And then now in 2018, now it's even more in the student rental area.
Right.
And I'm the progression of the city.
Yeah, and I'm just going to jump in here real quickly because I absolutely love Kingston. Me and my wife went out there last year for we've been there before, drove through it and stuff, but we actually went there to go take a look at a property for a client who was moving there. And then we ended up loving the downtown core, went to Walmart, bought some clothes, got a hotel and stayed there for the night. But I love it. It's a great city. And I actually want to invest out there. So just a quick little plug, I guess, if anybody, or if you're looking for a joint venture, to say Kingston's a great place. Correct me if I'm wrong, for investing.
It is a great place. There's a lot of, there's security in Kingston just because of, there's a lot of government employees here. And it's a government town, indirectly government town, but there's also other businesses. There's a Chinese manufacturing business that's putting in $225 million in infant formula. This is the largest, inflow of manufacturing money in Canada. And they chose Kingston for some reason. They're also building a bridge, the third crossing, that's 180 million. So there's a lot of, and Kingston's not that big. It's only 125,000 people. And Queens also has a huge amount of influence over Kingston. So that brings I've indirectly survived by feeding is probably not the word, but even as a contractor and as an investor, students bring in so much money into the city.
Oh, for sure. You can. I definitely saw that when I was there.
Everything's catered to students, and then the next demographics are retirees.
Okay.
So these are people who have residual income. Students have lots of income because they've got money from the government or their parents. And Queens is it's a high-ranked university. Let's put it that way. I'm not, I don't want to say it's the best university, but it's high-ranked. So you need very high averages to get in.
Right.
And there's 20,000 students coming in every year. It keeps on growing. So, there's a lot of students. It balloons in the once they arrive, it really makes an effect on the city.
And I'm sure the vacancy rates must be incredibly low out there.
Well, it is 0.7%.
That's incredibly low.
Downtown.
Yeah. That's
incredibly low, and they haven't actually stopped. Well, there's people from Toronto. They're going to be building, but it's a slow process, and it's what's happening also is the vacancy is being affected by people who want to live downtown, but like myself, I only cater to students. Okay. So I've got to push them away, and so they don't have necessarily a place to stay. But that also helps. That also influences the vacancy rate as well.
Okay. Now let's kind of get back to your story now. So you get that first property, and now you're moving into your second or your third property. What does that look like? Are you doing these on your own? Are you partnering with people?
Well, the second one, at the time, I wasn't aware of joint ventures. I wasn't necessarily. I was more of a solo individual. I was working with a team, but I necessarily didn't think of working with joint venture opportunities or people at a different level. The second property was basically a commercial unit.
Okay.
And it was a commercial unit. I picked up it was fairly busy as a contractor. And at the time, I was still doing a lot. I was still on site. Now I'm no longer on site. I've got some employees that I've known for many years, 7-8 years. So they deal with the management of it. So at the time, I was still doing a lot of it, being there, organizing, managing. And I picked up my real estate license in the winter months when it slows down.
Okay.
So I could see there was a property that was up for sale for 4 years, and it was vacant for 2. So they really, really wanted to sell it. And there was a few issues. There were high taxes. There was terrazzo floor. It was a nice commercial building, and there were doors everywhere. And there was a leaky roof. So they kept on dropping the price, $40,000 each and every year. So as a realtor, I could see this. And so when I made the offer, I didn't even call the listing agent. I just sent an offer, and I dropped it $40,000. And they were stunned. They were stunned.
Right.
I was stunned when they actually accepted. I wasn't all that surprised they accepted. And but the bank was like, "Wow, you bought this for land." Mm-hmm. So that definitely helped. So we started working on it, and we put a fairly amount of money into it. At the time, it was more than I was comfortable with. There was, it was a bit of it was a leap into the uncomfortable zone, which was good. And then it all worked out, but the bank also helped because we refinanced right away. Basically, I bought it for basically nothing, and now it's tripled in price.
Wow.
So that was a bit of a home run. I mean, that was not all like that, but having a contracting background definitely helps to acquire properties in which I can make the decision right away. It's not going to be a problem. One house we bought because it was a foundation crack. We saw it. There was no big deal. The bank freaked out. They saw it on the inspector report, and this inspector report was online, so they can see all of it in detail. It says cracked foundation, and so we lost our funding. We lost the lender, and that's where we were introduced to the beautiful world of RSP mortgages. At the time.
Okay, and then so now you get private.
It was a bit stressful. Yeah,
right.
That's exactly. We started off with private.
Okay.
I mean, it cost us $3,000 to fix the foundation. Like I knew the guy who was doing it, so it as a in the contracting world, you meet other people, you hire a few people, and so it's pretty small as well. So it cost us $3,000 to fix it, and then we moved on. Got obviously the financing from the hard money lender, and then just refinanced it 3 months later with a bank.
Okay, so then at what point do you get your first joint venture partner? Like, how many properties in are you where you're like, okay, I'm tapped out now, and now I need to leverage?
Generally, it happens after 5, 6. It's the debt, obviously, this, Gary. It's, the debt service ratio is out of whack. They don't take into account all the gross income coming in, or they take half of it. Yeah. And so I got to look into other means. So that's where we kind of reached out a bit. It was the Canadian Real Estate Wealth magazine. I can see some people doing other things, and I was reading about other people, and at the time I didn't really quite believe it because it was, it's in a magazine, But once you meet the person, so I attended a workshop, and it was all about joint ventures, and I was amazed that this individual had done it. He told me, listen, if I can do it, you can do it as well. These are the steps I go about it. So that definitely helped.
And when is this, Rene? What year is this, Rene? Approximately.
That's 2012.
2012. Okay.
Yeah.
And so this is when you first start looking into joint ventures.
That's right.
Okay.
And it doesn't occur like right away. I mean, there's a lot of steps along with it. It doesn't. I mean, you start off with family and friends, but there's. You got to have a bit of backing as well, credibility. Show what you're doing, and what you've done in the past. That helps immensely.
And how do you structure this first one?
First one is 50-50.
Okay.
50-50, and so it's, as you know, it's they're on title.
Yeah.
And they've got the security of being on title, and we split basically profits and losses 50-50.
And the down payment as well too is 50-50?
No. At the time, because I had, but again, this was actually family member. The first one was a family member, so there was credibility right there.
Okay.
So it's easier with family. It's definitely easier with family.
Yeah. And so who's putting in the funds? I'm missing that part.
They are.
Okay. So they're putting in all the funds and qualifying,
exactly.
and then you're bringing in the expertise.
Exactly.
Okay. So how do you sell that? That's the hardest part, I think, where a lot of beginning investors or even advanced investors sometimes have a hard time with that. Mm-hmm. How do you sell that piece? Because is that a mindset? Yeah. Is it just you're selling your expertise?
So when I started off, firstly, I would just talk to everybody about it. Mm-hmm. And, I'd corner somebody at a party and then just hound them on real estate for an hour.
Pretty much corner them, right?
Not the way to go about it. It just does not work. It just does not work. Or people think that, you're all money hungry and that you really need it. Even the word need would be avoided. So, what's helped, what I've realized is you can't necessarily create the need, create the hunger for it. They got to have it. It's a lot easier. You could create the hunger for it, or the need, or the craving, but that's a lot more difficult. So a common question would be, what do you invest in? I mean, if you're at a party, you don't necessarily start off with that, obviously, but you start off with commonality. You start off with engaging the person. In fact, one joint venture that I found was basically, it was at a friend's party, and obviously, what do you do? What do you do? You start talking about what you do, but I didn't go on into it. It was just like on the side. And we had a common interest, which was we had both lived on the same street in Toronto.
Okay.
So there was a rapport, and then we spoke about everything but real estate. There was engagement with the other person. I liked him, he liked me. We laughed a lot, and near the end, there was a couple people who came up to me and goes, "Oh yeah, you need to see his stuff, or you need to know what he does." So that also helped as well. I didn't necessarily pay these people; they just come to me, and they said, "Oh, you got to watch this video. Look what he's done." And then bit by bit, he wanted my card. I was like, no, just go online. And by not kind of giving it all to him, he wanted it more in a way. It was that helps. So what I would suggest to people starting off for joint venture is you need a bit of a hook to use. I don't necessarily like the word to use a hook, but there's lack of a better word. The hook is probably the best way, because you gotta just throw it in there, just kind of like a little nugget. They go, something that shines for them, something that goes, oh yeah, that I can actually use that. That could actually help me. So a common one would be something like, well, what do you invest in? And then you say, well, are you happy with those returns? And generally, if they're happy, you're not going to convince them. And then again, convincing them is not necessarily the right way to go about it. You don't even introduce it. But if they're unhappy with it and they start complaining on it, well, let's start in. And then the next step is, what I've noticed is to talk about their goals, talk about what they want. And that's a bit more challenging, because a lot of people, then again, you don't want to be saying this at the party. Sometimes I'll say, well, let's set up a meeting. I got a, little presentation I can show you, get an idea of, maybe we can help you with those goals that you want to reach, or you give a few numbers here and there, but I try to avoid the numbers. But just getting to know the person is definitely helpful, and you're educating them rather than selling, and you're hitting on the emotional side of things rather than on the numbers. Everything
you said there makes 100% sense. And really what you're doing is you're kind of shifting the conversation from yourself to them, right? Where it's, hey, what's going on with your investment? What are your goals? How are they emotionally feeling? Right. And I think when you kind of go up that tree, I think that's at least from my experience, that's what I found worked. Cause I screwed this stuff up for the first not couple years, but at least a good solid year. Cause you're always trying to sell something. Right?
Yes. So I've failed numerous times, a lot of the conversation, but it's the failures that you learn from. Yeah. One thing I'd also like to add is it's a question of also listening, asking the questions and listening. I tend to be the type of person that I feel like I talk for hours and meet a person who's really quiet, and I'll just ask them a few questions and go on and on and on. But you need to ask the questions and listen carefully, and ask a few more questions without interrogating the person. And then it's a build up a relationship. And then really when they realize that you are the person that can help them solve their problem or create the future that they want. If you're the solution and you've educated them, and then you present the whole shebang, the exactly your team. This is my past opportunities. This is what I look for. This is what I do. You get into the nitty-gritty details of it,
right?
And then you're educating them, but it's also a question of deep down. It's a question of creating security. That they know this is going to be okay. This is actually going to work, because it takes a bit more time. They may not realize it, but they may have these preconceived ideas of real estate or of money or of certain locations or the market. So you need to kind of deeply get slowly into what they may be, unveiling a bit of what they're thinking and just putting them off to the side and comforting them and realizing this is a safe investment. You'll be fine.
It's almost like as if you're trying to slowly move them from one form of security, which is their job, into another type of a form of security, which is real estate investing. But you've also got to do that slowly and easily, correct?
Yeah, it's not, you don't, few people will come up to you and go, here's $100,000 check, here you go. It doesn't happen that way. It's a build-up. And then once you got the reputation, people know you, then, money comes towards. I'm sure you've heard the saying, it's, you create value. Once you create value, the money flows.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
So most investors yes?
No, go ahead.
Well, most investors I work with aren't necessarily there. Like I don't promise. They're mostly retirees. I don't promise them that they can quit their job. They've already, they're just looking for additional income, which is definitely helpful. Or they want to travel. They don't want to be taking care of tenants or fixing up the place or even finding the place. They just want to make sure that their money is working for them. They're not looking to quit their job. They're either happy with their work or they're kind of semi-retired.
Okay, so let's say now, somebody's listened to this, they take all of your tips and your tricks and they go out and they do it, and it takes them maybe 6 months to figure this stuff out and they get it. Mm-hmm. Do you now recommend, so they have their joint venture partner now, do you recommend that they take their partners out to look at properties with them who doesn't have the real estate investing background or expertise?
It's a good question. It depends on the investor. I would say no, because often when people see, I deal with student rentals.
Okay.
The students are happy sometimes living in like, I would say, Phil, it's just, they're busy studying. So if you bring an investor on a property tour, they may have an idea of what their living standards. It has to have this or that. They may not see the potential. I bought a place a while ago. It was, there was water in the basement. It was problems, basically. I was buying problems. When we buy, as a real estate investor, entrepreneur, you're buying problems, distressed properties that aren't up to care, because that's where the equity and the forced appreciation comes in. So if the investor or the passive investor does not understand that, it could throw off a lot of people. So I wouldn't necessarily, I provide pictures before and after. I provide the opportunity, but once again, it comes down to, well, listen, this is how much you're going to get after 5 years of it. You know? And this is what I've done in the past. This is what we're going to be doing. It's going to bring up the value. We bought a place and we knocked it off. Maybe it was 10% easily from the market value, because there were problems with it and we had to fix it. And then we got in there, we threw in easily $20,000 to $25,000. Fixed new roof, new windows, the kitchen, painted the place up, and even furnished it for the students.
Right.
And we brought up the value. Now, in fact, just last summer, someone called me to buy the place. They want to buy the place, and I'm like, no, it's not for sale. So the joint venture, I was predicting lower returns, but with this situation, it's actually going to be higher than I imagined.
And for that one there, you didn't bring the investor out, or maybe they saw it afterwards.
They saw it after.
Yeah.
They saw it after, and they were, you know what they say, Gary. They're not necessarily investing in the property; they're investing in you. So if you present yourself in a matter which you know what you're doing, and if you're confident talking about it, you're not hesitating or doubting things, you know exactly what the plan is, and this is what we're going to be doing, there's validity and security in there. So they don't necessarily need to see the place.
Yep. And listen, you know what? I think you've said that 3 times now. So listeners, listen to what Rene is saying, okay? They're not investing in the property. They are investing in you. I think that's an important piece.
Yes. That's very important. If the thing is, once they start looking at the property, then they're going to start looking at all these other things, and it's just problematic. You don't want someone who's just going to be at your back constantly. It's not the property. It's not the good relationship for you.
Right. No, I agree with that. Now, you also talked about something earlier too, investing with family. Are you okay with that? Do you recommend partnerships with family?
Well, that's a good question, because my first JV.
That's my job. My job is to ask these tough questions.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, my first one was with my mother.
Okay.
First, because in a way, it kind of worked. It coincided with my development as an entrepreneur, real estate investor, but also with she sold her. She was done. She was finished with being a homeowner. Like, it was just the maintenance, cutting the lawn. My father had passed away. She needed to sell. She just wanted to sell. She got a very good amount of that property. In fact, they had bought it in 1971. So imagine the appreciation.
Yeah.
They bought it for like $26,000 in the east end of Toronto, and then they sold it for she got an amazing price for it. Sold it for close to $780 or so. Yeah. And so she had a fairly amount of money to invest in. And so start off, siblings are saying, well, you got to invest in this, you got to invest in that. And I kind of showed her the potentials with real estate, and it worked. I mean, it was fairly easy to convince because it was my mother. And second of all, my father had invested in real estate as well. So she saw the benefits that we had as a family. I mean, I attended private school. We went to France as a family for a year, and this is all because it wasn't my father's government job. It was real estate that enabled us to live well as a family. So that was my first GV partner, was my mother.
Right. And so I've had
to change the relationship. Slightly, because my mother wants to know all the small little details of it, but I keep on telling her, it'll be okay. But I think she's a lovely mother. She's just, as most mothers, she likes to worry a bit, and so she's always asking a few questions. But I think now less and less, and especially when she's on trips, when she's vacationing, she's not worried at all by it.
Right. Now, I mean, I don't know how large your portfolio is, but I mean, have you gotten to a point where you can now potentially live off of the income coming in from your investment properties, or are you still working towards that?
That's a good question. So with student rentals, it's great cash flow. I mean, there's properties that several properties that cash flow more than $1,000 a month, positive cash flow. So that definitely helps with it. Mm-hmm. I'm very, very grateful for the way I live. I have extremely a lot of freedom, but once again, that's what I want from the start. Okay. So to answer your question, I do still operate. I still have, substantial amount of money coming in from the student rentals. It's when there's repairs that throws me off a bit. but I still own a renovation / painting company that we do a lot of commercial painting. So that also enables me to cover certain expenses on the properties. So in a way, I do have a lot of freedom. I mean, I don't necessarily have to be anywhere at a time or so. So yes, I have gained financial freedom with real estate and a renovation company that I've operated and owned for 20, 25 years. And so I've been able to, through that persistence, through that grinding of 25 years, I'm able to operate it through simply the phone call.
Right.
And by paying good people, by having good people, you pay good people well, and then they can do all of it. And you just get a certain amount.
Right. And I'm sure you're going to continue to purchase investment properties. And I mean, knowing the type of person that you are, Rene, you would probably still continue to do what you do, because I think you've now fallen into your passion. I think you're also doing your own podcast as well, too. So this is something that you enjoy doing, correct?
Very much so. Gary, I have no interest in retiring. I'm the type of person that I enjoy my work. I enjoy talking with people. I enjoy creating things. I enjoy bringing value to others. I'll be doing this. I won't be slowing down. I mean, there are times where I feel I need a break. Then I go on vacation. Once again, I'm not even a vacation type of guy. I don't see myself on a beach doing nothing. It's very hard for me to do nothing. I tend to be the one who engages with people. I like to know who they are, what makes them tick, what's their passion, and if I can help them in one way or another, that's me. I can help.
Yeah.
So I've always, it's ingrained in me. I'm not looking for retirement. I'm not looking to quit what I do. It's an ongoing thing.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting when I ask that question to other people as well too, especially like entrepreneurs. They say the same thing as well too. They're not looking to retire or quit. But I remember when I worked at my 9-to-5 job, that's all I could think about. Like I can't wait till I was 65. And I was like, okay, I got to change my life here. If I'm going to wish away like 30 something years.
I think it's what is projected on society, that happiness comes when we're on the beach, retired, and we're not thinking about work or stress.
Yeah.
It's not quite the right picture. Most entrepreneurs I know, they're thinking about their stuff constantly. I mean, they're functioning, but they're living it, breathing it constantly. There's no. Some people ask me, and I find the question kind of. I mean, I understand what they're saying. They something. How are you busy, or are you off today? These questions don't make any sense to me, because I'm constantly thinking, I'm constantly growing, I'm constantly living and building the business, talking to people. It never really stops, because my life and my business are intertwined in a way. Right.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense, because you've now, you've built what you do on a day-to-day basis. It's just who you are now. Right?
Yeah. But it stems also early on. I mean, I wasn't the A student. People think the way I dress, the A student. No, I barely graduated from high school. I went to private school. That definitely helped, and it got me to university and all that. But what I've noticed, one trait is that if I didn't like doing something, I didn't do it. And you can't do that in high school. So early on, if I didn't like it, I just wouldn't do it. But the things I liked, I excelled really well. And most entrepreneurs are in that boat as well. What they love to do, they'll do, and then they delegate the rest, which enables the growth of the business. Even Bill Gates, after being CEO, he quit being CEO, he didn't like it, and then went back to developing and writing code for a while. I mean, he went back to what he loved to do.
Yeah. You know what? Same thing. When I was in high school, I was a solid C student. Actually, I got some D's along the way. You know what it was? It just didn't interest me. And I remember going into like exam time, and I would try to figure out how many questions I had to get right, and then I would just leave. I wouldn't even care about the rest of the test. I was like, I don't care. I'm going to pass, and I'm done.
Yeah. So it does reflect on the education system.
Yes.
Because, that's a whole different subject as in itself. but there's something to be said about encouraging someone to, if they like doing something, encouraging them, and then they become so much better. I did a speech a while ago at St. Lawrence College in Kingston. I knew the professor. She said, "Come on in." She does business. She teaches business, and they wanted me to speak about money. They wanted me to speak about real estate, and when it came down to it, it's like, wait a second, all this audience, they're 19, 20, they're 21, they're just starting off their life. I'm not going to tell them about real estate or JV partnering or details of managing students. They don't really care for that. So the speech was all about experiences in life. I told them, listen, what experiences do you want in life? Write those down. Exactly. Everything. And then the second column, spend time writing down the skills that you need in order to help with those experiences. I mean, certain experiences, if you want to go to Europe, sure. But if your dream is to travel Europe for a year or two, well, what kind of skills are you going to need to acquire? And it may be as simple as working in a bar, working in a restaurant, which enables you to have that experience fully for a year or two or 3 or whatever, how long you want. And then, so once you've got that list of experiences, once you have those skills, choose 2 skills, just 2. The rest, just throw them off. Life's too short. You can't elaborate on all skills. Choose 2 skills that you are very good at and just do those skills each and every day. Become the expert in those 2 skills. Combine those skills together if you can. And by repeating it, by doing it every day, you're going to become above average to the point where you'll be sought out for. And then once you got those 2 skills, public speaking, throw it in there and then you're fine. Then as an entrepreneur, whatever you want to do, you'll excel. And with public speaking, it definitely helps to grow the business as well and to speak to a wide audience as well. So with that, the next step is basically making a difference. Making a difference to your community, making a difference to society, making a difference to others. How are you going to help others with those 2 skills? So find the experiences, focus on just 2 skills with public speaking, and then how are you going to help others, your fellow person, your fellow human being? I
love that. That's a fantastic way to end this podcast. That is beautiful. Solid. Now, before we do though, because what? I love that advice. And I like the fact, just focus on those 2 skills. I think sometimes people just get so overwhelmed and they're trying to do this and trying to do that. But I think that's important. And then also too, that communication piece, right? And when you can master that piece with those 2 skill sets, it makes so much sense. So thank you for sharing that. Now, so now if you were to do this all over again, okay, God came down. He said, "Listen, Rene, we're going to give you one more chance here. What would you do different?"
Absolutely nothing.
Really? Okay.
I had to go through. Yeah, I had to go through certain things. And then again, but the reason I say absolutely nothing is because I try not to. I don't live in the past. I'm moving forward, or I'm in the moment. I had to go through certain things. I had to go through. It was simple as that. I had to learn. I think it also goes to show that certain lessons that we learn, we need to learn them until we've learned them well. And so if we're repeating the same lessons, well, you gotta take some time and kind of reassess it. Go, why am I always going in that same problem? Why am I finding myself in the same situation? Mm-hmm. So if you want a simple answer, I probably would have started off doing joint ventures earlier than I had started. That would probably be one. Often I wrote the article for the Canadian Real Estate Wealth magazine. In it, I said, start the JV process right away. The moment you're convinced about real estate investing as the way to create wealth, start on the process of joining partnerships, because with real estate, as I mentioned, it's a people game, if you wish.
I agree with that. I mean, this is a business that you can't do on your own. And I think the quicker that you're able to learn how to leverage other people's time and money through joint ventures, I think it definitely makes a lot of sense. So that's good advice. So Rene, listen, with that, well, what's the name of your podcast? So if people are listening and they want to listen to your podcast, where do they go for that, and how can they listen?
Everything's on my website.
Okay, which is
it's Real Talk Real Estate Radio Show. You go to Google, type in Rene Masse, everything will come up. My website, getbetterreturns.com, goes up. So everything's online.
Okay, and that's the best way for people to get a hold of you as well too. Just doing a search on your name.
Search on my name, and then once you get onto the website, my phone number's there, my email's there, and I personally replied to all the emails, and I definitely take the time to meet others and actually share what I can with them.
Perfect. All right, Rene, listen, thank you very much. I actually enjoyed this call today. I actually learned a lot from what you had to say as well, too, and I'm sure everybody else did as well. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary.
All right, Rene, take care and have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Do you know what blockchain is? How about the difference between Bitcoin and crypto? After 15 years of explosive growth across the globe, it's important not to get left behind. We are currently in the mid-90s of the internet when it comes to adoption. Want to learn more? Make sure to reach out to onebitcoin.ca broker today. Whether you have basic security questions or you need help buying Bitcoin in a safe and convenient way, onebitcoin.ca is here for you. Get started today with Canada's Bitcoin partner, onebitcoin.ca.
Thanks for listening to today's show with Gary Hibbert. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with your host on Instagram @Gary Hibbert. Until next time, stay mindful and remember, you don't have to be great to start. Just start, and you'll be on the path to being great.